The world of business continues to evolve, growing ever more complex and ever harder for investors to understand and make informed choices about where to put their money. This complexity, coupled with today's post-Enron climate, ensures that the role of professional services organisations remains under the microscope. These organisations must exercise caution and responsibility, as well as professional expertise. One reason why corporate responsibility is of the utmost importance to one of the biggest, PricewaterhouseCoopers.
We place a strong focus on corporate responsibility within PricewaterhouseCoopers. Indeed, we would say it's within our DNA. We see the whole range of corporate responsibility, be it our involvement with communities, with the environment, with our people, or indeed within the marketplace, as all being vital elements that enable us to ensure that we both have a good system of corporate governance within our organisation, that our people have a voice, that our people's concerns are responded to, that we understand more fully the impacts that society places on us and our clients' businesses, and indeed that we act responsibly within the overall environmental context. We provide advice across the range of performance improvement in terms of general business advice, advising companies on how they might tackle the corporate responsibility agenda. We give industry-specific advice, for example, on climate change in the energy industry, and we also have a specific team who advise our clients on sustainability.
The PM has said climate change is the biggest issue facing humankind. It is already impacting the economics of business, from the costs of insuring against weather-related events, to current and future taxes on carbon emissions, to the design and construction of new buildings, which will have to operate in tomorrow's climate.
To some extent you can see what PwC's broader environmental approach is from our website, but the main thrust of it is to make sure that we minimise our impact. And in doing so, we've developed policies that really cover all of the areas where we feel we have an impact, in the marketplace, in the workplace, in the community and in the environment, and both having policies and then actively managing those policies. Interestingly, we've had quite a few programs to reduce energy consumption, to reduce our use of resources generally. So there are lots of things going on in the business. I mean, I would example things like video conferencing we've invested in and encouraged our people to use that in preference to travelling. One of the things we've done in this area also is to reduce our CO2 emissions by 45%. And we've done that through, again, sensible planning, sensible policies, looking at ways in which we can reduce our energy conservation and energy consumption. I think one of the successes has been when we have engaged our people. When we've tried to do things as a business corporate, we were doing it all literally behind the scenes. Over the last few years, we have been much more engaged in engaging our people, making sure that our people play a part in what they're doing. And I feel that really wins all round for us.
Well, I think the key human capital issues facing PwC really fall into three categories, and that's recruiting the right people in the first place, retaining them, and then developing them. And I'd probably go further to say that within development we think of two main areas. One is very much technically related. Clients require from us a high standard of technical expertise, and then the second half that would be about really developing leadership criteria going forward. We live in a much more complicated era these days, and that makes diversity very, very important to us, and along with other areas such as corporate responsibility. All these areas are in many ways new to people's business thinking. They tend to think historically about the technical skills that we can provide and what our clients want for us in that perspective. But it's important to understand that the world is changing, and that's in terms of both demographics and, of course, wider environmental factors. And many of these factors will impact on our clients' businesses, and we need to have that broader understanding of what our clients are going through.
The ways in which we work with our clients really depends on the sector and the status of their current sort of approach to corporate responsibility. We often start with a sort of map in mind which says, well, the first objective that you have is to try and comply around the world, which sounds easy but actually isn't, particularly for a large multinational. Comply with your own policies and regulation, and certainly manage the risks associated with corporate responsibility. Once you've got that in place, then you can start to look at ways in which you can improve your business's effectiveness, drive out operation efficiencies, for example, reduction in energy costs or waste costs, those sorts of things. And actually, once you've started to tackle those issues, then perhaps you can look to see whether there really is strategic or commercial opportunity or advantage for you as a business. Bank of Scotland came to us and asked us to have a look at their own processes and their own existing corporate lending practices, project finance practices, to see how they were doing in compliance with the Equator Principles. But prompted by that, they also asked us to look more generally at the way in which they were considering environmental issues in the whole of their corporate lending activity.
Corporate responsibility in the context of banking today is actually a huge issue. Banks are absolutely very complex organisations, and they're also large, and they employ significant numbers of people. I was determined to drive the corporate responsibility agenda, and that has got to be driven from the top. And we called on PricewaterhouseCoopers to help us in the way we do that. Our corporate responsibility was not embedded in our credit sanctioning processes and our risk management processes on credit risk. So the value added was quite significant, and it is continuing, and I'm happy to say that the process that we've undergone was rigorous, robust, and indeed we are in the final throes of actually embedding it, and I'm looking forward to seeing the outputs.
We believe that business will continue to become ever more complex. It has done over the recent decades, and I think there's no reason to believe that that pace of change will slow. But one of the things we have seen happening in the recent decades is both the impact of regulators regulating our business and business more generally, and also the strong views of the consumer and society more generally. We believe this will continue, and so corporate responsibility is here to stay.